On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, we're going to talk about Chet Holmgren going on Paul George's podcast, plus who are the dark horses for the NBA awards to win the NBA championship and out west with Oklahoma City.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you, talking Thunder basketball. Here with Joel Lorenzi at JX on Twitter, the Oklahoman beat writer. Joel, we've had a lot of discussion over the last offseason, this summer, about the Thunder and the favorites out west and who could be threats to them. They're still, as we sit here in August, just months away from the season and, a little over a month from Media Day, they're still the favorites to win the conference. The Thunder at plus 300 to win the West. Who is the dark horse that you could realistically see winning the Western Conference?
Well, if our FBI agents listen to us as often as advertised, and they know the answer. If anybody listens to your pod, I imagine they know the answer. For me, it's the Grizzlies. I mean, the Grizzlies, obviously, it's been a couple years since they had real momentum. They had some untimely injuries, and you know what last year was. It was a disaster on that front. And so they have some time to make up for, some lost time to make up for, and some wrinkles to iron, particularly at the five. I mean, I believe in. I'm behind Edey now. Like I'm on the Edey train. I think he's going to be helpful to them. But as a starting caliber center, I think they have some things to answer. Jaren Jackson is not that, right? And so there are some things to answer relative to other playoff teams. But I mean, John Morant is electric. We saw, how many games did he play last year? 9 when he came back. It was like he never left. I mean, he's giving Wemby welcome to the league moments. He's getting downhill as well as anybody. He's winning games. He's winning games in the final moments of a game. He's just as I mean, I don't think he's going to steal any hype from Edwards. Edwards is his own phenomenon. I mean, that guy's been compared to Michael Jordan maybe more than anybody in the modern era, save for Bron. But like, John Morant is special, bro. And I don't know that I was always a John Morant fan, but he's special. I think he'll remind people this year. Desmond Bane is an interesting second option, but their regular season mojo works. Like what they do in the regular season works. And I don't think that can't be the case this year. And I think I imagine this is not an unpopular opinion anymore, but Zach Edey is going to be like really helpful. I mean, if that's the guy, if they're getting into drag chains with him all the time, because he is going to take some time getting up the floor. If that's who's setting the screens for Ja, like you're changing some things here. I like them a lot. I know you do. So.
Yeah, I mean, we've done multiple Memphis pods. We've done a Memphis pod together. I've done a Memphis pod many a time post-Memphis. But to shake it up a little bit, I have a couple more dark horses. Number one is not a dark horse at all, but like Dallas is not talked about as they should be right now. And I don't know when the pendulum will swing back to them, but they're currently the second best odds to win the West. And, our good pal Derek Parker is out on Dallas, as he said on last week's show.
You never know it by the way they get talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in on Dallas. But we'll talk more about that. I think that the Thunder are the clear-cut favorites. Vegas has it as such. Eye test has it as such. Production has it as such. Roster talent has it as such. Like, they're the clear-cut favorites. Dark horses, though, I mean, technically Minnesota at plus 500, but we all know what Minnesota, Denver, Dallas is about. The Tyus Jones pickup in Phoenix, if they get there healthy and they have Jones, Durant, Booker, Beal, would it shock you if they go on this miraculous run? If they go on a Dallas-like run, would that just stun you? The role players have
Dallas-like run to the finals?
Would it shock you if
it would. That's what that reaction was. Shock.
A nucleus of Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, fully healthy, getting help from their rotation makes a run. It's hot.
Fine. They're fine. Relative to the Western Conference, they're fine. I wouldn't count them out of the playoff picture. I don't think they're dead in the water they were in that Minnesota series. Maybe they win a couple more games in the series. They stand a chance. I think part of their outlook for people in the immediate future weighs so heavily on their outlook over the next, like, whatever this window is for them. Like, obviously, because that's so grim, people want to be out on them now, and whether they can win a series. I think they're better situated than they were last year. They got a couple actual point guards now, and Tyus Jones is a really, really good player. But they're fine. I mean, Dallas, like, Run, what are you talking about here, man? I know we're talking about dark horses, but Jesus Christ,
we're talking about dark horses. We're talking about dark horses.
Dallas like Run is crazy. Dallas like Run is crazy.
You gotta dig deep.
I would. Not only would I be shocked, I might go into cardiac arrest.
Was Dallas better than Oklahoma City last year? By any metric, no. They were better in that series, and they had the better star power in that series. You're telling me that there's no path where Phoenix just out-star powers you, where Phoenix gets the help necessary from Grayson Allen and them boys.
I think Dallas matched up well with Minnesota so that once the Thunder was out the way, they had the path to the finals. Is Phoenix going to have matchups like that 3 times in a row?
And that's the issue. That's why there are dark horses, because they know there's no evident matchup where they have success. They're going to need help. For this to pay off and them actually being a dark horse, they need help, and that's what makes
the injury gods.
Well,
it's not going to be straight basketball.
That's their biggest help.
And you know what? I know. I don't just mean on their team. I mean they're going to need help from the injury gods on the teams they're playing. It's going to take that. Now
listen.
I'm a Bud believer though.
Every single one of us is day to day. And all I can tell you is if that day comes and Judgment Day is around the corner and at the pearly gates stand Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, and Devin Booker, I feel good about winning a basketball game. And if I win a basketball game today and I win 3 more in the next 6 days, 7 days, I won the series. And if I win one series and I win another series and I win another series, where am I at, Joel? Okay. Where do I sit?
Okay, you're real adamant about this. Give me a path right now. What seed they start with what seed they enter the playoffs with, who they play and who they beat in the first round, and maybe I'll start listening to you.
Okay. So you look at Phoenix. The pathway is simple. It's simple. When you construct it, you're hoping that somehow in this topsy-turvy thing we call life.
Oh my God. It's so simple that you're stalling.
That the Suns match up with one of the Lakers or the Warriors, and our stars are more healthy than your stars. And they just run.
What seed would that take?
It's impossible, okay? It's impossible. But gosh dang it, we're looking for dark horses, Joel.
Yeah. We're going the length of the barn.
How about this one?
Now.
How about this one? Los Angeles Lakers. And that's just a bank on LeBron and AD.
So some would argue that's a good dark horse. Some would argue
16 wins from LeBron and AD.
Some would argue that's a dark horse if their first round matchup is the Thunder.
Please. Now
that was the argument last year, wasn't it?
It was.
I'm not saying I'm some.
And all kidding aside, I do think that's the most interesting game in the regular season is how the Thunder look against Los Angeles, because they're a team that matches up particularly well with OKC and did so last year as well. But that matchup's changed. I mean, the Thunder are completely different, even though their core is intact. And then my last one would be, of course, not parroting Memphis, would be Golden State, just because of Steph. Like if Steph just is incredible, maybe. But the thing is, I just don't foresee, to tie it together, I don't foresee anyone except for Oklahoma City, Dallas, Denver, Minnesota winning the West. And really of that list, I think it's Oklahoma City that's going to come out of it. I think it's going to be chalk in the West and in the East.
Yeah, no, agreed. Well, I was thinking about Golden State the other night. Are they closer to missing the playoffs? Then they have to be closer to missing the playoffs. Than
yeah.
Matter of fact, I shouldn't even ask the question. I would feel.
I mean, when you're in the play-in, when you're in the play-in,
we're in the play-in what?
When you're in the play-in, you're closer.
By the way, okay, are we talking about? Right, that's why I retracted the question. But are we talking about winning the Western Conference in the regular season, or coming out of the West to represent the West in the finals?
I'm talking about coming out of the Western Conference.
Yeah, well, neither applies to them, but
of course.
Yeah.
I apologize for the Suns rant. I do.
I'm glad.
It's been a
We
long
need a
time since
statement,
I've gotten
too.
really revved up.
Yeah.
I just want to get revved up a little bit. Sometimes you just want to feel things, Joel. And,
yeah.
you want
It's starting to
the
feel like a
Suns.
player pod. Starting to feel like that one player pod.
Listen, some have called me the most gritty player in the media runs. Taking charges, setting screen assists, things like that.
Yeah.
But
Well, the idea of you is like Edie. You're getting up the floor slow, so you are setting drag screens. Yeah, sure.
That's right.
Yeah. After that,
Edie in theory. But Joel, who's your dark horse pick for the NBA Finals again?
For the finals, coming out of the West or like generally?
Yeah, just remind me of the West real quick, and then we'll go general.
Well, when I said Grizzlies, I meant regular season. I don't think they'll make the finals. I think this is a year we should be exempt from a dark horse to make the final. It's not a thing. Regular season though, I think the Grizzlies could. They're a dark horse to win get the first seed.
Yeah, I mean, be a fantastic regular season team, a la them Hawks. Remember them Hawks teams?
Don't compare them to that Hawks team. Come on, don't do that.
I'm just kidding.
Don't do that, man. The nastiest assortment of all-stars we've ever seen, by the way.
Listen, Eastern Conference, though, I think is interesting because of the Porzingis factor, because of it's hard to repeat factor, but also because, like, okay, if we say that these things are going against Boston, who do you want to hitch your wagon to? I mean, the grimy New York Knicks, the unhealthy, somewhat inconsistent playoff disappearing act Philadelphia. Giannis, like who would you hitch your wagon to out east if not Boston? If I told you could not pick Boston.
Oh, the Knicks for sure. I think are we doing a segment on dark horse NBA title, or are we just bundling that?
Yeah, this is it. This is it, buddy.
Oh, it's the Knicks. The Knicks are that good to me, man. I think they'll give Boston a run for their money. I'm not saying they'll win, but I think they'll play them closer than just about anybody, man. I mean, Jalen Brunson he's really difficult to scheme for. They have two of the best perimeter defenders in basketball. So matchup wise, there's a lot they could do. Julius Randle, I imagine he just has to send people toward them or toward the rim, where Mitchell Robinson will lie, assuming he's healthy. They can play different ways, man. They can play Julius at the 5. They can have OG defend bigger above his weight. I mean, we saw him defend Embiid fairly well in scenarios last year. I'm just pretty in on their versatility. The chemistry is obviously there with the whole Nova Boys thing. And they have like a top 3 assortment of role players in the league right now. Like, I mean, you got on the list and they're deep. I mean, Josh Hart is like down on that list. Like, in terms of guys that are going to play second fiddle to Jalen Brunson and I guess Julius Randle if he's back to being an all-NBA player. I mean, you're looking at OG Anunoby, Mikal Bridges, Dante DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson. The list goes on and on. Like, it's a really good team, and that's any year. So that's I don't know. Can we call them a dark horse for the NBA title? I mean, it feels like it's the teams in the West and Boston, and anybody outside of that is a dark horse. So,
I mean, my criteria for MVP was top 3. If we use that same criteria, it's Boston, Oklahoma City, Denver, and then Philadelphia, and then you get to New York. And so, like, I don't have Philly over New York. That's to me. Do you have Denver over New York?
I think it depends on matchups, because obviously, if
I have New York over Denver for the simple fact of New York to get to the conference finals, much easier.
The path is easier. They'll
no
be
matter
there.
what the standings are, much easier path, because I firmly believe that they'll be on the opposite side of Boston.
Yeah, Denver, they'll be there. And if Boston has
1 seed, and they have a much harder task to get to the West Finals than New York does.
No debate. And if Boston, if New York gets there to the conference finals, which I imagine they will, 90% sure. If Boston has bad injury timing, they're in the finals probably. Yeah. With Denver,
if Boston has a couple clunkers in the Garden, they're in the New York's in the finals. Like the sport of basketball when New York is at its apex is better. Like the Garden being on fire is better for the sport, and it's hard to repeat. And you're already entering the season with the Porzingis equation. I like New York. I like New York a lot.
Me too,
But
man.
I'm telling you,
who's yours?
I'm telling you here, I'm getting there, Joel. I mean, this is podcasting, babe. We're gonna figure this out one day for you about the rhythmic dance that is podcasting. I cannot quit Philadelphia. I can't quit them. I can't quit them. It's a habit I cannot break. Every year I do this to myself. It's partly the Kansas thing with Embiid. It's partly the fact I love watching Sixer games. Broadcast crew's fantastic. They tip off at 6. I get to watch them a little earlier than whenever the Thunder and the West Conference tips off. I love Philadelphia. And if you can go back hand to God in the year of our Lord 2024, I believe every single podcast I've done on Lockdown Thunder for postseason previews, I've picked Philadelphia. And every single time I get burned because I'm an idiot, Joel.
Yeah, you've lost all your fingers by now.
But dang it, Joel. Dang it. Am I ready to bet on Philadelphia again? Maxey, Paul George, Embiid, my guy Jared McCain. I'm a Sixer. I'm a Sixer.
They have all your favorite content on the team, your favorite podcaster, your favorite TikToker. They got everybody.
Listen, elite Twitter and Joel Embiid, elite name, by the way. You have Maxey, fine on social media, whatever. The best TikToker in the league, and Jared McCain, the best podcaster in the league, which is a medium near and dear to my heart, clearly. So I think a heck of a coach who hails from the G League, a very important part of my life as well. So
like, add your favorite player, Kyle Lowry, too.
Okay.
Look, this is what I'll say about Philly. I want to bet on them too, but I am not so dumb that I keep going back to the person that hurt me. I'm not
dumb, and it's really cost me in the past.
Blinded by love.
Personally, it's done that. Professionally, it's done that. Listen, we can really get to the therapy couch right now of how many times I've gone back to bad vices, so to say, and Philadelphia is one of them. And Philadelphia accept me as a Sixer. It's going to be Philly, Rylan. Philly, Phoenix, Joel.
You're disgusting. If I was to fall back into that slump, go back to the vices, as you say.
I mean, you've got a trio here that could pull the rug out from you at any moment. You might it
would be because of Maxey, and not because of Paul George, who at this stage isn't giving me any indication that.
But what if this is the perfect setup? What if this is the perfect setup for Paul George?
You know, and it could be, but I would still be betting on this thing because of Maxey and not him. And the thing is, you know, I think this is I'll say this. I think this is the second best shot they've had with Embiid at the helm. Obviously the best shot was the year that they still had peak Ben Simmons. They had Jimmy Butler. They lost to Kawhi on a game winner in Game 7. Like, that's tragic. It's life. It's basketball. This is the best shot they've had since then, and I don't know it's particularly close. With the assortment of role players they have, with Martin, with Paul George possibly in this role, with your guy Kyle Lowry, with Jared McCain. This is the best shot Embiid's had. I just don't know that that's enough when you look at the top two teams in this conference, barring any injuries. I would have bet on the Knicks without adding Mikal Bridges. You know, I would have bet on the Knicks adding Mikal Bridges without Julius Randle coming back. Like, there are combinations of the Knicks without being at full force that would lead me to count them in before I would Philly. I'm sorry. I can't keep betting on Philly, man. I can't.
Is this a hot take? Eastern Conference, no longer the ugly redheaded stepchild of the NBA. Because, I mean, I love Boston. I love Philadelphia. I love New York. We have not mentioned Giannis Antetokounmpo playing with Dame Lillard. Like,
it's Dame's fault.
We haven't mentioned Cleveland, who, like, I don't think can win the NBA Finals. I don't think they can win the East. I don't think they can do anything relevant. But you know what they can do? Give you a tough 6 games, steal a first-round series, beat you up, not let you get to your goals.
Well, I think Orlando could do the same. I like the
Orlando
middle
could
of
do
the
the
East.
same.
I like the middle of the East. I'm a fan.
The NBA, this is peak NBA. This is peak NBA right here.
This is peak NBA? Well,
yeah, cut the nostalgia. Cut the nostalgia.
No, you're probably right. Hey, I'm not a nostalgia merchant.
Well,
You're a nostalgia merchant out of the two of us.
I do dabble in Jerry Stackhouse highlights from time to time.
You're a sicko. And Brandon Bass and
Brandon Bass was sweet, man. Oh my goodness. Don't get me started on Brandon Bass.
you're
I'd love to
unreal.
do
Yeah,
Locked On Brandon Bass.
I bet you would. You locked on Kyle Lowry. You're just a
Where
nostalgia
did this
merchant.
Kyle Lowry love come from?
That's your guy.
Okay, I'll take it.
Okay. You're a nostalgia merchant between the two of us. I like the current NBA. I'm of the belief, and this is why we're not going to get into the whole barbershop Bron versus MJ thing. I'm not mad when people call MJ the GOAT, but basketball is. I mean,
not just help engaging your basketball mind on this show, but help at BetterHelp, because BetterHelp.com is there to help you. BetterHelp.com/LockedInNBA. Joel, I happen to know that you have a lot on your mind, and you're weighing some things in your personal life, and you're trying to balance. Let's call it 3 balancing acts, if you will. And BetterHelp can help you decide which of your options should you lean toward, and they can help you kind of decipher all of that. So go to BetterHelp.com right now, because it's, I think that we all can get the benefits of therapy. And Joel, you and I are in the same boat of, we always look at it and say, well, we're too busy. I mean, we've got so much going on. We've got podcasts, we've got articles to write. We've got obligations, both business-wise and social-wise and family-wise. And so you just can't make it out to an actual therapist in a brick and mortar building, but you can make it out to a therapist online, totally suited around your schedule at BetterHelp.com/LockedInNBA today to get started at 10% off your first month. BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedInNBA to get started today. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, entirely designed to be convenient, flexible around your schedule. You just fill out this brief questionnaire. They match you with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time with no additional charge until you find the right one for you at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Go there right now and check them out. I think he's a pretty good option. But who are some names that you look? Because right now, whenever you go to our good friends over at FanDuel, it's Luka Doncic leading the pack, plus 350. Nikola Jokic, plus 360. SGA, plus 550, the top 3 for MVP odds. Then you have Embiid, Antetokounmpo, Edwards, Brunson, Wembanyama, Tatum, Morant, Curry, Durant, Williamson, Halliburton, Booker.
right. I mean, I guess some people would consider Shai a dark horse. It depends on how they feel about him. I came across a Twitter thread the other day that I believe this was from 2 years ago, 2022, and it was 4 players pictures side by side, and it was like, how would you rank them? Dude, you're not gonna believe this post, which is, maybe it feels irrelevant when I'm telling you this, but this is probably how some people still think about Shai. It was Shai. It was LaMelo Ball, it was Darius Garland, and it was DeJounte Murray. I mean, none of these players are even on the same planet as Shai anymore. But some people, I mean, that's how Shai gets viewed in certain factions of the country. So I imagine he's a dark horse to some people. I don't have any quarrels with people saying that this is Luka Doncic's year. Obviously, our arguments are not against Luka as a player. It would be, how Dallas treats the regular season. As far as dark horses go, though, best value for your odds of guys who are not obvious picks, I like Jalen Brunson a lot, namely. I mean, I think Anthony Edwards is in there somewhere. I think he has a lot of momentum as a guy who people believe in. He has all the attributes of, an MVP candidate. That team is successful. They were part of that, what was a 3-way tie down to the final game of the season last year in the West. But Jalen Brunson, I mean, the Knicks are so good to me. I think, I'm only such a believer in Philly. If the Knicks are not in the conference finals, at the very least, I'd be disappointed. And Brunson is the heart and soul of that. I mean, he's making me believe in small guards again. Just how unorthodox he is, the pace he plays with, how he uses his body. I love Brunson's game. By the way, a little bit about my past. I watched Brunson in high school. I was a freshman in high school when Brunson was a junior, dropping 57 on Whitney Young, my alma mater, back in high school.
You didn't help him out on some drop coverage or anything?
I was not.
Switching screens.
I was not in the game. My basketball career did not last long. But that was a high level. I mean, the Whitney Young team. We're talking about how Jahlil Okafor. He was the number one player in the nation at the time. So this was high level basketball. This was beyond me. I was like 5'3", but
still are. That's how he was.
Huh?
You still are 5'3".
Excuse you. That's not true. We're the same height.
Oh, you shrunk. You're 5'2".
So you need to tell these people you're 5'3" then. But Jalen Brunson dropped 57 in that arena and then flicked off the crowd. It was incredible. It was incredible. You can look this up too. You can look up the picture out there exists. There's
still very Paul Georgie.
Whoever it is, it was fantastic. And I knew he'd be good. I didn't know he'd be this good. And so now he's my dark horse for MVP. I think he's this movement of small guards and the belief that there is, if there's any much belief at all. I mean, ask Becky Hammond. I don't know if there's much belief at all. But if there's
Becky
a
has
guy,
her own issues right now.
Sure. If there's a guy that can lift a team of his mold, there's no one I pick better than him. And he's entertaining, he's reliable, he's consistent. He's as healthy as you probably need an MVP candidate to be, because of course we're probably not even thinking like this, but you need a required amount of games with these awards now. I think he checks all the boxes, man, and the Knicks are going to be damn good, man. I mean, they have the perfect supporting cast now. My expectations for them are really, really high, and if they had the regular season they're supposed to, I don't see why he wouldn't be a dark horse. I mean, he was in the mix for not MVP or what, I guess he called some MVP, like back half of the ballot momentum last year. He was definitely had momentum for first team All-NBA, like being a snub, stuff like that. I don't see why he can't be in the running here this upcoming year.
Yeah, and I think that it's easy to paint the Jalen Brunson MVP picture because you look at the landscape of the NBA right now in August, and it just feels like we're on a collision course to the Celtics repeating as NBA champions. I'd remind you that that's how it felt about Denver as well. Now, I do think that Boston's more legitimate and more put together and complete than Denver, but I'd also remind you something that I think that people will not wake up to until October, and you gear up for ring night against these very Knicks and realize Porzingis is not playing for a large chunk of the first half of this season. So if these Knicks, who we know have a massive media market behind them, have no shortage of people who openly root for New York in the media, if they capitalize on this front half of the season and amass such a lead in the Eastern Conference where Jalen Brunson is delivering New York the 1 seed, and Jalen Brunson is making people feel things with his Villanova crew that New York could be back and that they could be NBA champions, well, then he will be among the best and top MVP votes. I mean, he finished, listen to this, 5th in MVP last year, which is where Shai was the year prior to last before he got runner-up. So 5th in MVP last year, 12th in MVP the year before. He's kind of had this growing sense of, hey, here's some votes for Jalen Brunson as a tip of the cap to how good he's been. And so you start to climb that staircase, and if you can deliver New York the first seed, which sounds crazy in August because we think so highly of Boston, and rightfully so, but when you remember what Boston's missing, and you go from Porzingis now to an aging Horford to Luke Cornett, like you quickly see how maybe they are not cut out to just ramrod things out of the gate. And there's a sliver of a chance to dethrone them in the regular season. Now, the postseason, when they're healthy, is a completely different beast. But this is a regular season award. This is a regular season narrative-driven award. And if you're looking to pick a dark horse, and in my opinion, the criteria for that is you can't pick anyone in the top 3. So no Doncic, no Jokic, no Shai. Brunson is a very, very likely candidate to get dark horse MVP because of what we just laid out.
And would it even take the 1 seed? What if it's just closing the gap between 1 and 2? Because the Lord knows, I mean, the gap between 1 and 2 last year was egregious. I mean, Boston was that good. But what if it's closing the gap by 5 more games? Winning, 56 games, 58 games, like just being close enough. I mean, I don't know that it even takes the 1 seed. And I know you didn't come here to mimic me. Who is your dark horse? You didn't have Brunson before.
I love Brunson. I love Brunson, but he will not be my pick for the sake of giving the people some more options. I had two, and I'm playing both sides here. One was just Jason Tatum, because what if we see the media overcorrect on Jason Tatum, which they've been known to do, where he's quote unquote getting no respect, and the media hates Tatum, and now they've overcorrected to shift him up that totem pole. But my real answer is going to be Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, like, you look at this guy who people love. He is easily the most marketable player in the NBA because people just love him. Like, I don't care if you've ever been in Minnesota. I don't care if you've ever even watched him play. You've seen the TikToks. You've seen the interview clips of him talking about playing baseball and being the cleanup hitter, fourth, fifth hitter. Like, you've seen Anthony Edwards. You've been around Anthony Edwards. Like, you know Anthony Edwards. And so the league has clearly done their due diligence of putting Anthony Edwards in front of you. He's on opening night. He's on Christmas, which is the 2 times a year the NBA dominates. And I think that Anthony Edwards will play up to snuff, and he'll play in that realm of it, that MVP realm. And we view the West as this tough gauntlet, as the best conference we've ever seen. Rightfully so. It was last year as well. Last year came down to tiebreakers. It came down to tiebreakers, and it came down to a very competitive top with Denver, Oklahoma City, and Minnesota. I expect this to go the same way. Things broke Shai's way. Things broke even Jokic's way in the standings. What if they break Ant's way? And you look at this team who I think can go one of two ways. I think that, like, the pressure of this being their last hurrah, of the impending tax bill and the uncertainty of how long they can keep this going, it can either crush you or it can band you together and you become just a juggernaut for this season. You deal with the consequences later. Whichever direction it goes, I think will help define Ant Edwards' MVP case. And I mainly put him on here because it would just make Clemente Almanza just the maddest he's ever been. If he sees Ant Edwards win MVP, he'd somehow loop in J-Dub as the MVP of the NBA and debate that. But no, Clemente's not an Ant Edwards fan, but you know what, Joel? I am. I'm an Ant Edwards fan.
I am too. I'm just a fan of basketball. That's why that is the case. But I don't know why he couldn't average 27, 28. He played a ton of games last year. I think only missed 3 games last year in the regular season. And as far as like scoring low goes, like you're right. You made a good point about the way that the conference could shake. Any of those teams could be, in the running for first. I think comparatively to those the higher powers in the Western Conference, you look at the drop off from first option to second option, and Cat scores pretty well in the regular season, but I still think there's a pretty obvious load on Anthony Edwards that might not be as much the case on a lot of these teams. I don't feel, at least watching. I mean, you could argue like Shai the dub. Shai is so great that maybe the drop off is there, but I just think there's more asked of. I mean, you see it in the playoffs. It's part of why they didn't really stand a chance because of the drop off. I don't see why he couldn't shoulder that burden and it help him, shoulder his MVP case. I just think he could be there. I think he could average 28 points this year. So
coming up, let's talk about MIP. The dark horses for that award could be in Oklahoma City. Joel Lorenzi, it's game time. Go download the Game Time app, create your account today. And when you do, Joel, and you use code LOCKDOWNNBA, guess what? Guess what I'm going to do for you? $20 off your first purchase. That's right. $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Create your account. Use code LOCKDOWNNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for $20 off your first purchase. When you download the Game Time app today, last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. I love Game Time. One reason I love Game Time is I love the all-in pricing. You just get everything up front. There's no hidden fees. There's no surprises at checkout. What you see is what you pay when you're picking out your seat. I also love the view from your seat because sometimes you've never sat in that area of the arena. You've never sat in that area of the venue. You've never even been to the venue. You can get the view from your seat at Game Time. Go there right now. Use code LOCKDOWNNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Joel, if you're thinking of taking your special someone to a OKC Dodgers game, go check out Game Time. Create your code LOCKDOWNNBA. You might need 4 tickets. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Joel, how you doing today? Still feeling good?
They're funny for that rhyme before the break. You're hilarious. I don't know who you think you are. You think you're a rapper now. That was funny, but I'm good always.
I'm the most versatile on the beat, Joel. They've often said that, but
you're the most what?
Versatile.
Who said that?
Sources.
You're like on a player podcast right now.
I would challenge you, Joel. I'll say it. Find me the guy whose playlist can go from the Grateful Dead to Elvis to Hurricane Chris.
Hurricane Chris is the only rapper you have in your phone.
No, that's not true. One of them's canceled. I'm not going to say who it is. But Chance the Rapper?
Chance the Rapper hasn't been good in 10 years.
K-Dot, come on. Chance the Rapper slander is not tolerated on Lockdown.
What do you have, the Kendrick single that everybody's been listening to this summer? Give me a break.
Okay. No, and not just that one. To Pimp a Butterfly, shout out. Listen, Joel. That's been an anthem of Joel Lorenzi this summer, but that's for another podcast. Joel, dark horses for MIP. You look at the MIP listing, and you have a gripe with this, but then again, what doesn't Joel Lorenzi have a gripe with?
Read off the favorites.
I'm going to.
Odds from
if you let me get there. This is why Joel gets in some trouble. He has a beef with everything. He hates everything, and he jumps the gun. Joel, MIP favorites. Victor Wembanyama, Evan Mobley, Jonathan Kuminga, Josh Giddey, Jalen Johnson, Paolo Banchero, and J-Dub. The first Thunder player checks in at plus 2,000. Chet Holmgren, who we talked about making a step forward in the first segment, is at plus 6,000 to win most improved player.
Mm-hmm.
But your gripe comes at the top. And Victor Wembanyama at plus 850 to win most improved player.
I mean, I get it. It's the way this award works. I don't know when it changed to this. It's kind of been like this for some time. This wins it most years. But we reward second year leaps. When this is like natural progression, like this is what we expect these guys to be. Like when John Morant got it, I don't remember who he won it over that year, but I was appalled the year he won it because I thought that was a pretty deserving person. Like I know every year there's not going to be a Kobe White or somebody who magically pops off in year 6. Usually by year 5 or whatever, you kind of are who you are, unless your context changes, your scenery changes. But like the year 2 stuff, like and for somebody like Wemby, like who we know is like probably on GOAT trajectory, or somebody like John Morant, who we saw was a great rookie and was bound to be a great sophomore. I just think we reward guys for like not having sophomore slumps. I do think for my dark horse, I mean, we could each make a case for Chet Holmgren at plus 6,000. Like that's as dark as the horse can be. But Jalen Johnson, I like his odds. I like the way he's trending as a player. I like the way he's finding himself in the league. He's like a great modern four, really bouncy, great next to Trae Young. I don't see why, and I imagine Atlanta values him too much for him to change scenery, but I think he'll be great for Atlanta, whatever they're heading toward, maybe the middle of the pack, whatever. But I think here at his next stop, I think he's going to be such a versatile player and have a long career. I like who he's becoming as a player. And I think he's due for a real, like, tangible, like, numbers jump.
Yeah, and I think that Jalen Johnson is a good pick. Chet, we of course already made the argument for it, feels like, in the first segment. J-Dub, I think is a case. I think, like you mentioned, though, the way J-Dub gets better will be recognizable on Lockdown Thunder. It'll be recognizable to you listening. If you're listening to this podcast in August and you survive the player pod discussion, it'll be recognizable to you because you've seen this team play and you're very familiar with this team. I don't know how evident it'll be in the box score, which is honestly what voters are sifting through to name this award. I will say, I look at Josh Giddey and think, he peaked in OKC in 22-23 with 16 points per game, 7.9 rebounds per game, and 6 assists per game. He could have the counting stats in Chicago, and I think he'll have fantastic counting stats in Chicago.
What's the leap it would take then for him in Chicago numerically?
That's the question. Is like his counting stats have already kind of been there. So like to make a jarring leap where you look at his basketball reference page and you're trying to vote and you're saying, well, Josh got a lot better. His counting stats have been 12, 16, 12 in terms of points, 7, 7, 6 in terms of rebound, and 6, 6, 4 in terms of assists. So his counting stats have already been good. Like to make a noticeable leap in the counting stat department, you need 20 points. You need a 10 in one of the rebound or assist categories, which he could maybe get in either one of those categories. And you might need close to 10 in the other one as well. So like I think that Josh Giddey's odds are a little inflated, not because of anything wrong he's doing, but because like the way we've done this stuff is going to be counting stats, and he's gotten really good counting stats in the past. But plus 1,400, I wouldn't hate it. He's with Billy Donovan, who's gotten the best out of guards. He's in an avenue where he's able to play the way he's designed to play now, and I think he's going to be great in Chicago. I think he'll be awesome for the Bulls. But I like your pick of Jalen Johnson. I like J-Dub. Like if J-Dub has a healthy year, like he doesn't step on the camera guy and he continues to thrive in the mid-range and takes any step forward, you could see him average 20 plus points and 8 plus rebounds and 5 assists with a more open floor without Josh on the floor. No offense to Giddey. Like I think that Jalen's a really good pick. And then from there, a shot in the dark, you can really make the case for a billion guys. I'm still not off the Jalen Green train. I'll say it. I know that everybody hates the Rockets, and we've given the Rockets a lot of love in this pod, it feels like. But I'm still not off the Jalen Green hype train. I will believe in him till the days are gone. But MIP, I just really want to get your thoughts on, would you wager on J-Dub or Chet for this award?
Probably Chet because of the visible stuff we talked about in the first segment. And I also don't know. I think Dub's going to have a great year. I think he's going to have a very important year for them. I think he's going to improve in all the places he needs to improve to have a better second round, have a better postseason run, all that good stuff. Now, there's some things that might, and I don't know how well he can just improve his handle in a year. I mean, handles are like very, I don't know, like that's linear, but I don't know that you can make that jump so quickly as other things. That's something I think has obstructed him, at least from afar. But like the counting stat, I don't know that I agree that he can make the counting stats leap. Like obviously there's a lot more room to be efficient now that Giddey's gone. There's more usage for him. Like there are factors that will contribute to him certainly having more shots than he did last year. I think the second unit he'll lead potentially if the Thunder leans into a lineup with like Dub, I'd say either like Caruso or Case and Wallace is interchangeable, Isaiah Joe, whoever one you put at the 4, and then like iHeart. I think that he could do great things in that lineup. Among the rest of the game, he comes alive in the fourth quarter. I think he's going to have a great year, but I don't know that he'll have the kind of leap that makes voters. I think a lot of things, just how well-rounded this group will work probably against this group in some award cases. I don't think that would be the case for Shai because, Shai is the engine. What he does is evergreen. He's the most consistent dude on earth. That won't change. But like, I just don't know that I see the counter leap, the counter stats leap the way you do with Dub.
Yeah, I think that I would not put money down on MIP because it's just such a fool's errand to try to predict who's going to make that leap.
Yeah, I will say I'll put money on Cooper Flagg his second year. I bet you he's the favorite. That's just how this award works. That's
true.
Good money.
That's true. But if you're going to throw any shekels down, why not put 10 on Chet Holmgren? Because if you put 10 down on Chet Holmgren at our good friends over at FanDuel, and he wins it, you get $600 for wagering 10. If you're into that sort of thing, maybe a pro tip there. So as Joel and I went on this podcast, a little peek behind the curtain, we went over an hour. As you know, that's not the format here at Locked On. So you've already heard us talk about the dark horses to win the NBA MVP, NBA MIP, NBA championship, the West, etc. What you have not heard was our original first segment, which is all about playoff podcasts with Podcast P, with Chet Holmgren. That will be on tomorrow's show. We're going to diagnose the schedule and play for you our conversation with Joel about Chet's Paul George podcast, So you get 2 for the price of 1 here when it comes to this one. I just wanted to record this to not abruptly end with that tease that we've already fulfilled, which is not how you're supposed to do teases, but the conversation just flowed better this way, chopping it up and leaving the Paul George stuff for tomorrow. So tomorrow, schedule talk and Paul George, Chet Holmgren podcast talk. And then we'll be back continuing on the week from there. But I thought that this was a fun podcast to do. It had legendary moments, forever Locked On Suns and Locked On Sixers now. But again, I hope you enjoyed it. Until tomorrow, be good and be good to one another.